You know, mine's not nearly as inspirational as his because I don't have a lot of national level to talk about. But you know, mine's I kind of do some of the somewhat dangerous stuff too, because I can sit here tonight and tell you, and I'm sitting there, by the way, it's been a long day. I can tell you everything you want to hear. I can pander to you, I give you a 15-second good speech. You sound like a fiddle and bump strip and go home. Tell you everything you like to hear.
Can't hear it.
But, I'm sorry, I didn't bring it up this right. I'm worried about that as well too. I'm constantly warned never to do settings like this. I always tell me, do not do that. Other politicians cringe. Because you can count on one thing, there's enough people in this room. I will say something in here in my talk tonight that some of you will not like. They'll say, I can't believe he said that, I disagree with you. And it's true. Not because I'm trying to make you mad or throw you off. I'm just telling you what I think. It's just who I am. And I can tell you at one time or another, I've had the Southern Poverty Law Center label me on their website as a radical racist. And I've had my own Republican Party call me up and tell me they're going to do a resolution condemning me for a bill. So I've had everybody from all spectrums, the far right, the far left, and all the squishies in the middle, call me out on something because they just didn't like what I said. So just fair warning ahead of time when you ask me questions, just realize the answer you may get may be an answer you like, maybe an answer you may not like. But Cam's Cam, and life will go on. I come to you a little bit from the Montgomery aspect, you know, and Montgomery's kind of Washington. You think it's this little foreign, like Mars place, and it's really not. I wish more people would come down there and sit around and poke with some product. Robert, you and I had some talks just last time. That's good, it's healthy, thank God. Because the more often, the more transparency that goes on wherever it's Washington, whether it's Montgomery, whether it's Tallahassee, it's healthy for our process, it's healthy for the system. This last session we had a bill, and it's coming up this time, we told this last week. You know, people often think that state, federal government, that they're just two different creatures. You know, we just had a presidential election, everybody goes, well, thank God, it's over, but politics is over. Absolutely not. Now the real politics has begun. I'll give you a great example. You know, with the election and basically the status quo, which has remained the same in Washington, you're going to continue seeing a federal government that grows and grows and grows and grows. Well, the only way you can combat that is through the federalist system that's put in place, and that's the 10th Amendment. One of the issues that I have seen as an attorney, yes, that's right, I am a double whammy bad guy. I'm an attorney and a politician. That means I'm both. I don't have two horns, I have four horns on my head. But let me tell you, one of the biggest, most dangerous things I see coming down is the issue of foreign laws. Let me tell you, get into it a little bit. Most of you would identify it as Sharia law. But it's not just Sharia law. There are courts today. Florida, for example, had a court case down in Tampa. The judge rules on a case. And you know what he says? He says, the reason I am ruling in favor of Party A, forget what the issue was. It could have been a drive-by shooting. It could have been a shoplifting. It could have been murder. But his court precedent, which in a lot of cases is lawmaking, was based upon a United Nations treaty signed in 1987. And his court precedent was based upon that treaty. Justice Kennedy wrote in one of his dissents for the U.S. Supreme Court. What he said? He said, well, if you look at the United Nations Treaty on Children's Rights, blah, 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 it says this, and therefore we as a country should follow this precedent. We as the states are going to have to step up and say, no, we're really not. No, we're not. And not just, you know, Sharia law gets the attention because the liberals like to say, oh, you're a bunch of religious intolerance, you hate people. No. What we're saying is if we make a law, that's the law we want to live by because you elect a king. You elected whoever. But I want to follow or I don't want to follow. But somebody in Geneva or somebody in Nigeria, I don't want to follow their law. I want to go do that, I go live there. That's a problem. And we as states are going to have to start exercising our 10th Amendment rights and take that back. We're going to have to. Because I can tell you, if you don't, more and more states are going to end up falling on the wayside of thinking, well, it's just the federal government, can't do anything about it. Yes, sir.
Cam, doesn't the treaty supersede the Constitution?
No, not in my opinion, it does not. No. The power to make a treaty is ingrained in the Constitution. You know, the President can propose and the Senate has to ratify. But it doesn't say, nowhere in the Constitution, this is Cam talking, nowhere in the Constitution does it say, if I sign this treaty, it overrides all other laws. In fact, I would say just the opposite. I would say we can sign a treaty and it may be a quote-unquote guidance, but guidance is just that. There's oftentimes people want to guide me, but that may not be the direction I want to go in. So that's my, and there's a legal dispute in the community about that, but I would say, no, it doesn't.
By tradition though, it has been held that treaties approved by the Senate and signed by the President have the force of the constitutional law, right?
Absolutely, and there are a lot of courts that have ruled that way, and that gets back to what I'm saying before. As states, we're going to have to seize the 10th Amendment and realize that, hey, look, I understand the Bill of Rights, but there's 10, there's not just one or two. Liberals are real funny, they'll pick and choose which ones they want.
But the Constitution.
They love that First Amendment, but the 10th and the 9th somehow kind of fade on the wayside. A second issue I want to bring up, and we can dance around it all day, but at the end of the day, a lot of us are here tonight talking about guns. Talking about guns because of what happened today. And there's a lot we could go until midnight, I imagine, on this subject. And it does. It kind of, I don't know. It kind of tugs at my heart because there's little kids. My daughter's 10. I went to she went to Creekview. She's now at Thompson Intermediate. I went there all the time. Saw these little kids. How do you not get upset by that? Come on, we all do. But at the end of the day, as a society, and this happens a lot, particularly with national elections, we're a real, for whatever reason, we're a real heart society. Sometimes we go heart over head. And we love to, emotions will get the best of us. All of us get emotional. I mean, if you're not human. I get emotional. I love my daughter, my wife. But this is a dangerous time. Because bad things happen. You know that? Bad things happen. There's some bad people out there. There's some very sick and disturbed people. I've dealt with people who are just they're not mentally right. They're sick. And whether someone goes... Several of them serve me. Several of them serve me. Let me say this, though. There are people that will walk in this room right now with an axe. There are people that would walk in here with a hand grenade. And you know what? You can't outlaw everything. There's no way. You can't make evil any more illegal than it is. You can't do it. I bet you before the day is over, or before the week is over, it will be discovered, not probably by some of our mainstream media folks, but it will be discovered that the person who did those terrible, terrible things today up in Connecticut probably violated so many gun laws you could list them on the list. It's
underage for one.
It's just, it goes on and on, but of course, we'll get and I was following online, the power of the iPhone is amazing, or BlackBerry or Android, whatever you use, because you can read Twitter, and you can see the national conversation kind of right before your eyes. And what you see is you go, my gosh, I can't believe it's going this direction. Because people, what happens is, you get emotional, little kid dies, and all of a sudden, we want to fix things. Men are especially like this. Ladies, men, we love to fix something. We're going to fix, the bath's broke, we're going to fix it. Toilet's broke, we're going to fix it. Car's broke, we're going to fix it. We're not about, and we want to fix it. And society we're that way. Somebody got shot, what can I do to fix it? Somebody asked me that today. Cam, what can be done to fix this? Sometimes there are things that happen in our society that are bad. And there is no duct tape, and there's no plunger, and there's no way to fix it.
That's part of a free society.
That's a free society. And what we have to realize is there are going to be people in the next few days that are going to say, if you would just, that'd be my favorite line. I've seen it on Twitter today. If you would just.
Ron Emanuel.
Yeah.
Never let prices go.
Or even the worst. My wife and daughter and I went for Thanksgiving. What's the Macy's Day Parade? Bloomberg is probably the hands down worst, because he said, you know what? We have so many overweight people. If we just remember that line. If we just eliminate fat food, if we just eliminate sodas, for long we're going to be eating grass and drinking water. I mean, it's the truth. But I guess the point I'm trying to get at is, over the next few weeks, there will be a lot of people saying a lot of things. And I'm the first one to tell you, I think it tugged at my heartstrings. But the overreaction, government's the most dangerous point. And I will tell you this both for our side of the aisle, conservatives, and for liberals. The most dangerous thing that can ever happen in government is when it moves fast on new legislation or laws. cannot begin to tell you. People ask me all the time, they say, my gosh, why does it take y'all so long to pass a bill in the Alabama Senate? Thank goodness it does. You want that. You really want that. But you wouldn't believe the number of people, when they see a tragedy, what do they want to do? Well, fix it. Because if you just did this, this would fix this. No, it never works out. Yes, sir.
Well, when you brought that up, you not rush something through the Alabama Senate. The state of Louisiana, on November 6th, passed an amendment to the state constitution. It passed unanimous, how do you pronounce the word?
Everybody voted for it.
Everybody voted for it. It said the federal government cannot come in here and ban firearms.
That's a good point, and that leads me to that you kind of segued into something we're talking about. We actually have a constitutional amendment coming up this session. Gerald Allen over in Tuscaloosa, well, y'all know Gerald. Gerald's a great guy. He has a bill, a constitutional amendment. There's about 6 of us that are co-sponsors, I think. I'm one of the co-sponsors. I forget the other 5 or 6. That would, it's the, for lack of better terms, it's the Montana rule, the ammunition. If you know, what happens now is the Constitution's been perverted. What they use is, they use the Commerce Clause or Necessary and Proper Clause. Those are the 2 clauses that Congress uses to basically dictate your entire state government. And it's been an eroding process. We didn't wake up one night. And what happens is, they said, well, since guns are in commerce, that's how the federal government is able to regulate your guns. But what Montana did was, they said, if you make the ammunition here, if you sell the ammunition here, and you fire the ammunition here, guess what? You're not subject to the Commerce Clause, therefore Congress cannot regulate. That's very similar to what you're talking about, and it's probably the same thing Montana did, I would imagine, because that's a bill. We actually have that coming up this next time in the legislature as well.
Excuse me, Senator.
Yes, sir.
That's not just ammo, sir. That's firearms as well.
It's both. Yes, I should have said both, but the ammunition's that was kind of my best example, talking about Commerce Clause. Yes, it's both firearms and ammunition. You're correct. Thank you.
Under the Commerce Law, though, they can say that, well, you're making it there and using it there exclusively. Therefore, you're taking away business that could have been brought in from elsewhere. You're still affecting Commerce.
I look forward to seeing the court case on that one, because I believe I could win that one. I don't believe that. I understand. Yeah, that's what they try to. They're going to try to argue that. Robert?
An example is the Gun-Free School Zone Act. If you've ever read it, it is the most confusing garbage you've ever seen in your life.
And the problem with the Gun-Free School Zone Act is, you know, everybody has the intent. What you have to be careful of, good intentions lead to bad results. For example, what happens is they say, well, no guns in schools, whether you agree or disagree with it, whatever. What happens then is, though, they say, no guns in schools plus 1,000 feet. And the moment you ever hear plus 1,000 feet, that means next year plus 2,000. Next year plus 3,000, plus half a mile. Before long, yeah, that's exactly right, Joe.
Plus what happened today.
Yeah, that's exactly right. You still that didn't change anything today. Yes, sir. No, did you have another question, sir?
I'm a gun manufacturer in Shelby County, Alabama. We manufacture the AR-15 assault rifle.
Not
40 rifle. I'm going to send it to explain to you. The ATF agent, Mr. Maxwell, come in. He's come in to do this. Here's the rules, here's the guidelines. He laid down this book about a half-inch thick. He said, these are the rules, but they're 80% gray.
We all know that's right.
Yeah, I can tell you. As being
Don't even know what the rules are.
Being in politics, I've seen a lot of gray, and it can get dark gray and light gray. Yes, ma'am.
Well, I would like to speak on the issue of guns in the school. I am a veteran teacher, having taught 24 years. I have taught in every grade in the public school system, and I teach the most dangerous kids. I teach low incidence, which means kids who have, I've taught kids with problems. I've had kids who bring locks to school, all kinds of things over the years. All right, I'm at an elementary school in Southampton. Next week, I am your child. If you are a parent at Southampton, I am your security guard. I will sit at the front door. And how am I going to we have no metal detectors. There's no guns. I've had 2 knee replacements and 2 shoulder replacements, and rebuild elbow, how am I going to knock somebody down? What am I going to do? Throw my purse at them? And as long as schools are targeted with teachers who are not trained for security, to be the security guard, you are going to have crazy people walk in and shoot or whatever because they have made no effort, despite a rash of killing and massacres around the country over many years, have made no effort to secure the school by even anything to protect the people in it.
And I go back to, and that's a good point, I go back to this, in the 90s, I think it was 97, I worked for a congressman. Let me tell you this, what happened. That was when the guy came in the front door, remember that? And he came in the front door, they had to have a metal detector and 2 security guards. This is the front doors of the United States Congress. And he walked in with a gun. He was very mentally disturbed. He was very disturbed. He came in, walked right through the metal detector, shot the guard. The other guard grabbed for his firearm, he knocked him down, and he exchanged fire with several Capitol Police until so. If that happens in the United States Congress, I don't care what you put on the front door of anywhere, it's going to happen. I'm not justifying, I'm not saying it's right, I'm saying it happens. Well, you can nanny state yourself to death. You will not be able to protect against crazy, bad people. Yes, Ron.
My thinking on that is people are going to places where they know there's no possible encounterment of somebody else. Joe, Colorado, the high school, the movie theaters. Where were the people who, if they could carry a gun in those places, these people wouldn't kill 12 people. They wouldn't kill 27 kids.
You're not going to walk into a mall and camouflage a hockey mask on an AR-15.
You're not going to do it in Birmingham, Alabama.
And the same debate came up during terrorism, and this is why we have to be careful, because remember right after 9/11. The absolute truth. And I've seen that because it happened right after 9/11. The number of things that people were proposing, we've got to do this because we've got to protect ourselves. We've got to do this because this will make it safe. If we do this, if we do this, if we do this. And before long, suddenly, you have just chipped away all your rights in the name of quote-unquote of safety. You've done nothing to make anything safer. You made yourself much less safer. But because of hysteria...
But you feel good about it.
You feel good, but hysteria leads people to say, by golly, we should have a unanimous vote today, up or down, let's get all this, let's pass a law, let's get a law. Instead of saying, hold on a minute, wait a minute, make sure we protect individual rights, because the individual knows more about their own personal safety than any other national government does, yes.
Senator, what's kind of curious here is, has anyone read about the last decade, 2 decades, 3 decades, of any shootings ever happening in Israel? You want to know why?
They walk around
Heavily armed.
I think the basic problem here is the arrogance among some in government, thinking that the average citizen, as taxpayers, don't have the common intelligence or responsibility to take on our own personal protection.
Well, that's right.
And that's really the main malfunction I think that's going on here.
Yeah, it is. It is. Again, I know more about my family and my life than you do, and vice versa. Absolutely, Richard.
One question in particular, Cam. My son works for General Dynamics, Tactical Ordnance up in Anniston. And pretty rough that section of the town, he works second shift. And they have a policy that he cannot carry in his vehicle on company policy.
And getting the Rhino Roberts talk here.
Right. But there was a bill last session that addressed that and that would outlaw that and would allow him to carry at least in his vehicle. He can't carry it in the building, but to not allow him to carry through those rough sections of town at night in his personal vehicle and leave it in his vehicle is, in my opinion,
now you're getting into a subject. All right, now I beat up on the liberals for a little bit, so let me turn back around and beat up on my own party for just a second. And I'll get right with you. Let me beat up on my own party for a second. We had a bill last session, we had 2 or 3 bills, but the big one that I served on several committees. I was on the, I was co-chair, what they call, it was a very strange situation. I was co-chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee. My co-chairman was elected to a judgeship. I'm now the chairman of the Senate Judiciary. But I served about 5 or 6 other committees. One of them is called Business and Labor. Well, there was a bill, it's the workplace bill. We call it guns in the workplace, but it's actually where you can do it in the parking lot. You know, just like yeah. Well, it came up in committee, and this is a true story. And a lot of my dear friends, contributors, big supporters, some of them here in Birmingham, came in and they all sat here in the front and they all line up and kind of harassed the heck out of you. And the bill passed out of committee. Well, there were only 3 Republicans that voted for it. We had several Republicans that didn't. We had several Democrats that didn't, but it passed by 1 vote. And I was proud to vote for it. We can do it again. But what happened was afterwards, you know, the business lobby just swarmed on you, And I'm right, they're wrong. I mean, you know, I had to tell them that they're wrong. But you know, they come and they dress you down to, well, Cam, this is why you're wrong. And they put out this book. I wish I had a copy of it. The business community puts out a book. And for the most part, I got great scores. However, there's a section on guns where Cam Ward was called nasty names by my own party folks, and that's okay, I don't care. But you know what I kind of reminded them of this? I said, remember this. I bring, say, let's flip it on their side. Let's say legally, they have a right to keep me from having my gun on their in the parking lot, okay? Locked it up in the glove compartment, and they have a right to do it. Here's what I remind them. Forget my Second Amendment right. Forget your personal property rights. You know what they're doing wrong there? Legally, they're opening themselves up to a whole bunch of lawsuits, because what's going to happen is, say a guy wanted the nut job today that shot the people in Connecticut. Say he shows up and he's got a gun in his car, and they did nothing about it because they wouldn't know. So guess what happens? Whoever gets shot says, "Oh, you have a policy that says I can't have a gun here. Now you're legally responsible." That's stupid on their part. Legally, yeah, us lawyers are bad. Us lawyers are bad folks, but we can come up with some creative ideas once in a while. But that's exactly right. And you know, I laid that out for them, and for whatever reason they can't get it. That bill will come back again this time. However, it will be rolled into one. Like an omnibus bill, one big, it's going to be one huge, we'll have one gun bill this time. Robert, your open carry is going to be Scott Lee's. But the Mayshell, I call Mayshell. But we're going to have about 3 or 4 issues rolling into one gun bill this time, so there's no more going to this committee, that committee. It'll move one bill, so you'll know this is a Second Amendment bill, who's for it, who's not. You'll know ahead of time where it's going to be.
Wait. We're Alabama, right?
Yes.
And we're what states' rights?
Yes.
So we're Section 26. We're not Second Amendment, we're Section 26 in Alabama. And that's our right to keep and bear arms.
Well, it will, but it'll be easy for people to understand.
Yeah, I understand.
And let me mention one more issue too. And this came up a lot last session. I'm surprised, and I guess I was in the House for a while. State House representatives, and in the minority, they didn't really care what I thought, so it didn't matter what I said. And suddenly, this last couple of years, they whatever reason, it got magnified. 2 bills that I just feel passionate about this, and I'll say it again. It may hurt me one day, but it will. One is this: hate crimes. I'm a passionate disbeliever in the issue of hate crimes. And the reason being is, and I explained this to the in committee. I said, listen to me. And I'll tell you some groups that when you can make veterans mad and you can make Equality Alabama mad on the same day, you have done something spectacular. And here's why I did it. There were 2 bills in committee. One that said there should be a hate crime created for if someone's sexual orientation. That was Equality Alabama. I said, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it, because the reason being is, your life, if all of us are in this room and we all get shot and killed today, why is your life more valuable than mine? Why is mine more valuable than yours? It shouldn't be. It's murder. It's murder. And there's crimes in the book for it. The very next group that came up was a veterans group. I know we have a lot of veterans in here, and I respect what you do. But you know what it was? It was a hate crimes for veterans. It's still a hate crime. It's still wrong. It can be a nun. It's wrong. It can be a preacher. It's wrong. A hate crime. You are classifying people and saying government will play God. Your life is worth more than mine, or mine's worth more than yours. And that's wrong. If I go into a room and kill 20 people, does anybody think for a moment, right before I walked in and said, ooh, you know what? it's going to be a hate crime if I kill X, Y, and Z, so I probably shouldn't kill them, I'll just kill the rest. I mean, it's absurd. It's the most absurd thing I've ever heard, but people do that. I'm going to tell you, as long as at least legal bills, tort issues, or crime bills come through my committee, we were not going to pass a hate crimes bill. And I don't care how many times the Southern Poverty Law Center calls me nasty names, or puts me on their website, or ACLU screams. We're not going to do it because it's fundamentally against what we should be in society. Yes, sir.
Question. I got the $64 question for you. I guess the 800-pound gorilla. I've been reading about it a lot lately. Does the governor have the legal authority to conscript, I wouldn't say conscript, but raise a militia,
Yes.
which is not subject to posse comitatus or federalization, i.e. Little Rock and Tuscaloosa?
I would argue yes.
He does.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Yes, sir.
My brother-in-law is director of intelligence for the Guard. We've already had that conversation. He's already checked into it. Yes, the governor can empower civilians to become part of the Guard. Yes, you do follow up under military law at that point. And if he orders you to go to Mobile and fight down there, and your family's up here, you got to leave your family.
Which cannot be federalized, though. That's
Cannot be federalized. But here's the thing. Here's the thing. The Alabama Guard, all these stupid weapons they just have, all they got, all the Humvees and all, they're not owned by the state. They're not owned by the Guard. They're owned by the federal government.
Yeah.
So the federal government can pull their weapons.
They give the money, and then the money is always that's the root of that's the root of the problem. Let me mention one more thing here to you guys. I feel this is a little bit off our Second Amendment issue, but I feel passionate about this, and I have for a while, and I've gotten good comments and got a lot of bad comments. These are folks on my side of the aisle that really kind of have some heartburn on it. But it was interesting. I told you before, I've been in the minority side of the aisle, been in the majority. I'm a Republican the whole time, but I've seen both sides of the court, I guess. And I proposed this bill in 2002, and I proposed it all the way today. When I was in the minority in the House, or the majority in the Senate, I feel passionate about this, and it's ballot access. And let me tell you why.
It's what, sir?
Ballot access. I'm sorry, ballot access. Let me tell you why I feel very passionate about this. I am a Republican. I'm not ashamed. I am a Republican, and I always have been, and hopefully I think I always will be. But I truly believe the fact that Alabama ranks as the toughest ballot access state in the United States is a disgrace. It's an absolute disgrace. And people, oh, Cam, don't talk about that. We're in the majority now. You know, all you're doing is allowing this group, this group. Let me tell you, if someone is a libertarian, or you're a conservative party, Constitution Party, you're the Green Party, Socialist Party, we call those Democrats, but I mean Socialist Party. But if you want to be on the ballot and you want to be able to contribute your ideas to the political debate, you should be allowed to do so. You should be allowed to do so. And you hear the first people who are going to get beat on stuff like that? Me. Because I live in a very Republican district. I would be someone who would get a third-party challenger. But if I can't run on my ideas, why should the law be staggered on the access point to the point where you have no voice? You can't come in and offer a third alternative. You should be allowed to do that. And I know there are a lot of people in my party who will tell me, I got a letter today, Kathy, from the chairman who told me. I mean, Bill was very clear. He went to Birmingham News and was telling me why I was wrong. And the quote was, and I'm not knocking Bill here because Bill's my friend, but the chairman of the party said, Cam, the quote was, we're going to let a lot of undesirables on the ballot. Well, here's my problem with that. And again, you're talking to a lifelong Republican, and I always will be. But at the same time, the chairman of the Democrat Party, the chairman of the Republican Party, the voters determine who's desirable and undesirable. And I just personally, this is a crusade. I'm probably on an island somewhere roaming about, but I really believe this. Whether you're the far left, whether you're the far right, whether you're the squishy middle, you should have a greater opportunity to have access to the ballot. Richard?
Where are we on that? And I'm, as a chairman of one of the minor parties, I actually was the guy that, after that letter came out with Armistead, I was the guy that wrote the rebuttal. I think I was the only one minor party chairman in the state that wrote a rebuttal to Bill and to the position. where are we in this next cycle on ballot access in particular?
We're going to push the same bill again. Actually, last time we got it further than ever. We actually passed it, not only out of committee, but we passed it out of the Senate this last time. And now, of course, it died in the House, but I'm just a firm believer. We'll keep pushing it until, I'll keep tilting that windmill until it goes away.
And publicly in front of this group, you have been the champion for this. A lot of folks don't understand in Alabama, 44,800 signatures are required to run for any statewide office, to run as an independent candidate for president, or to run for U.S. Senate every cycle. 44,800 signatures. If a minor party uses paid petitioners, you're going to spend about $65,000 to gain access to the ballot every time that we run through a cycle. And Bill's position was outrageous, in my opinion, saying that we didn't need undesirable outsiders with unproven ideologies on the ballot. I think just about everybody in this room is tired of the status quo.
And Richard, let me say this, when it comes to ballot access, and I know that's a quirky issue. You know, we talk about gun rights, we talk...
Didn't you change that to like 25,000?
I tried to, it failed. But I guess my point is, I will probably, and I'm just being honest here, Richard, I probably wouldn't vote for your candidates, probably wouldn't vote for your party. But you know what? I want the opportunity to do so. I want the opportunity to do so. I want that freedom to do so. And anyone, the government or parties that say, we can just keep this group out or we can keep that group out, that way the debate will go our way, that's not the majority or minority. That's not, we shouldn't be doing that.
Can I make a quick point, Kim, on what you're saying? One of the things that disturbs me greatly, and a lot of folks don't understand this, if you go back and look at 5 cycles in the last legislative races, look at 5 consecutive cycles and take an average of how many races were decided in the primary in this state, over 50% of our state legislative races are decided in the primary. If it's a Democrat in that seat, there's no Republican challenger and there's no independent. If it's a Republican in that seat, it's vice versa. It's one of the highest percentages of any state in the country. When I ran in 06, the qualifying fee was $500 for state house. Well, in 2006, 57% of the house races were uncontested in the general election. You know what happened between 06 and 10? You do, but most of these folks don't. They double the qualifying fee. Yeah. We're in an oligarchy situation in Alabama where it's ruled by the elite, and their deals cut between the two parties as to who's going to have competition and who's not.
Sometimes it can be paid.
And it's essential that we break that cycle.
Dale, you had a question.
Yeah, what about independence?
I treated
an independent presidential candidate, 5,000 signatures.
I ain't talking about president, I'm talking about here in Alabama.
It's 3% of the number of folks that voted in the gubernatorial election every cycle. For an independent. And statewide it's 44,800.
Ours is
presidential only.
Ours is the most strict in the country when it comes to independent running. I mean, and that's what kind of got me bothered. I had a guy who wanted to run, and I forgot what his issue was. But when we started talking about it, I just kind of said, "Why don't we look into this?" Come to find out, and my bill does the same thing. It doesn't make it easy. It doesn't make it just whatever anybody can sign up. What you don't want is California, okay? And I don't want a California where you have 50 people running for one office. You clutter the ballot 3 pages long, but it should be easier than it is now. Mississippi is one of the top 3 loosest restrictions in the country. I mean, it shouldn't be. There's no justification for saying it's the toughest in the country to run for office.
So independent, then it's more signatures to run as an independent than as a Constitution party?
Actually, presidential only, and this is one of the only reasons. There was a federal lawsuit that's still pending that was filed on the primary date change because the primary date was tied to the ballot, to the petition deadline. And that was something I think that was actually a catalyst for this getting as far as it did this last time. But for an independent candidate for president, it's 5,000, and that deadline is like the 1st of September or the end of August. But as a third party, governor say any statewide office. No, 44,800.
Yeah, it's a percentage of where
that's due by the primary day, and that's another sticking point, Cam. And let me kind of run with this because that's one of the things that I wish you'd meet with us with Independent Alabama, the whole group about the next access bill. because the primary date situation is a real problem for us also in Alabama. There's several ways that they stack the deck on us. The Republicans and Democrats go through their process. They have their primary. Then they have the runoff, and then there's a certification date. We are asking for the certification date, but they don't got a Republican or Democrat in this state.
Richard, Robert had a
Is there a
question.
write-in ballot on every office?
There is. There's a write-in. You know, it's some counties, some don't. I just that to me is kind of
Well, I just had a friend elected.
there is. Yeah, and some will. Some will. It's enough of them. Yes. Yes, sir. You had a question.
Yeah,
back
I'm kind of an outsider here. I'm from Jesse Ventura country. I'm now an Alabamian, and it really offends me that you've dislocated and maybe your bill has this in, I don't know, or it's going to pursue this, but there's a whole segment of population that we've left out. Yeah. And restoration of civil rights is as an American shouldn't even be questioned. And moving into the state and seeing that there's a whole bunch of people that have committed victimless crimes. Some of them committed crimes themselves through drug addiction, prostitution, whatever, and they're banned from the vote. They don't have a right in the civil process that this man's talking about, that you're talking, because in this state, you can buy a summary judgment, slick lawyers, and I've seen it happen. The insurance companies do it, State Farm, all of these medical, you can buy a summary judgment from a judge. It's part of the good old boy clip, and we're not, when are we going to talk about solutions instead of, I mean, I agree with this man said earlier. I mean, it doesn't matter who you have, half a dozen of this or 6 of that. You still end up with the same crap.
Dale, I told you I had enough for everybody to
So when's your bill going to address that?
You want me to address restoration of felon voting rights? Is what
That's
it is.
right.
I'm not going to do it. Let me tell you why. Let me tell you why. Because there's a system in place right now that does that. There's a system in place. I can go right now to the Pardon and Parole Board and I can get pardoned or I can get my voting rights restored. You can do that now. Now, a lot of people say I want it automatically done.
You pay your debt to society, why should you not have your civil right to vote restored? That's the American way, because you're afraid that people that are controlling the political scene.
If the next fellow decides to run against me, then I'll respect his right to run against me and he can vote against me.
Well,
that's the way it goes. I understand that.
That would be an all or nothing type deal. You'd have prisoners.
But you can have your rights restored. It's not like it's a permanent restoration.
There's 3 Americans that are off parole.
Brandon, you had something.
Richard brought up, and this last, deal in Senate District 35.
Yeah.
My understanding is you can't start a political action committee to raise money or anything until the governor calls the special election. Am I right?
No, you can have a political action committee. Period. Anybody can. You just can't. For example, I can't create a committee right now. I can start raising money next June. Okay, let's use Cam Ward as an example. I cannot create a political action committee and go out and solicit funds. Now, if a group in here says we're going to create a conservatives love Cam Ward, probably won't happen. But let's just say this: conservatives love Cam Ward PAC. Okay, and they want to raise money for me. As long as my name is not on anything doing with it and I'm not solicited, they can do that. But no, you can't solicit yourself.
Going back to what Richard was saying, 35, you're trying to get that done as quick as we can do it. The governor...
They call it snap count elections.
He had the special election call. The certification was 10 days after the call. For an independent guy who can't raise money,
it can't be done.
I mean, for him to, raise would be what for a Senate would be about 3,000 signatures. You can't do that in 10 days.
And that's a flaw in the process. In fact, Richard's group had mentioned that one time before as well. Yes, sir.
Senator Matt Jenkins of Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Straight ticket party were voted last cycle. I looked at some data after November 6th in Jefferson County over Tuscaloosa. And it was phenomenal how many people just pulled the donkey or pulled the elephant and didn't actually educate themselves on what was down there. Are y'all going to address that in the legislative section?
I don't have any interest in addressing. Here's why, because what you just said is a good example. You said people didn't educate themselves. Well, I'm the government, and the government shouldn't educate themselves either. We shouldn't educate people either. If someone wants to vote straight ticket Republican, vote straight ticket Democrat, that's their choice. I don't necessarily agree with it, because I can tell you, I don't vote straight ticket. Now, I will tell you this, in fairness, 90% of the people I vote for are Republican. But I always go down one by one because there's certain Republicans that are my friends, and that's the problem. They may be my friends and won't vote for them. But I don't have a problem with somebody voting straight ticket, because if I come in and say, you can't vote straight ticket because you're just not smart enough to understand, you need to educate yourself on it. That's not the government's job. If ignorance prevails in the democracy, then you know what? That's our fault. That's our fault, and that's why we're here gathered tonight, to educate and hopefully work with people to educate them better on how the system runs. We got time for one more. Anybody else? Somebody had their hand raised a few minutes ago. Yes, sir.
All right. Going back to the gentleman back here from the Ventura country, it does not matter if when you were 21 years old, you got a felony conviction, did your time, and was pardoned, full, and got a letter from your state government that says you have every right of a normal U.S. citizen that's never been in trouble. When we run you through the NIC system, they will deny you point blank. I have had customers come in and say, I've been pardoned, and show me the paperwork with official seal on it. It don't matter, folks. If you're arrested for a crime punishable with more than a 12-month sentence, you can no longer own a gun in this country.
This will go to, I'll answer this in a good way. This goes to my friend Robert Kennedy's issue. And I say, I'm not teasing Robert, I like to tease him a little bit because we talked about last session. You know, you had the issue in Alabama where sheriffs really had this issue about what's called the may and shall issue. You know, the sheriff may issue a gun permit or shall they issue a gun permit. And Robert has been a true advocate for a long time saying the law should say shall.
Well, you're not supposed to.
But I mean, you're on, we know what side you're on.
You got that last, you got number 10 on there.
Yeah. But it kind of addresses what you're talking about, because what's happening now is, and I've had some arguments with some sheriffs in my district actually on this, the sheriff shouldn't have the discretion to determine the latitude of the Second Amendment. I mean, and right now what's happening is not just latitude, because there are exceptions to the law dealing with mental illness and that. What's going on now is there's certain sheriffs out there saying, well, you know, this guy he lived down the road from me. He got crazy stuff in the yard. I'm not going to issue him a permit. Well, that's not the Second Amendment. Good grief. I mean, that's a Gestapo state, but that's what's going on. And hopefully that bill, which you're talking, which Robert and I visit with a lot, that bill is going to be part of the workplace to guns bill that somebody discussed with me earlier. So hopefully we can get all that addressed at once. Yes, sir.
Not to get off topic, but could you quickly give us some kind of rundown at the state level as far as the
PTO meeting? And I said, you know, Agenda 21, they look at me and they just glaze over. They have no idea what I'm talking about. They don't. But if I go and say, what about if my city makes regulations determining that your grass height can be this high, and by the way, you have to have Bermuda grass, and you can only grow daisies, and you can't have anything but red begonias, not white begonias in the front of it. They go, well, I hate that. That's Agenda 21. It's not the issue of us going out and banning. I guarantee you 80% of the population agree with you. The problem we're doing is it's bad salesmanship. Somebody mentioned it earlier about having a robot for a nominee. It's the same issue on Agenda 21. We know what Agenda 21 means. We understand the ramifications. We have so many people that go in and go, you know what, I want my neighborhood to be pretty. I really do. And don't tell me what to do in my yard, but my neighbor, his grass is awful. I want y'all to come in and regulate and mow his grass. And if you sit in it, but that's exactly what happens. Until we start educating people, this is the problem, you're never going to have anybody stand up for it, stand up against it, because it's a glazed look. I mean, it really is. We've got to explain to them, may not call it Agenda 21, but if it's regulations that come in and say, Cam, when you go down and get the paper in your yard, you shall wear jogging pants that are this long, and you shall wear a sweatshirt that's this big. Got to be a solid color though. It can't be red or blue. You know, until we explain to people that's what the fundamental freedoms being taken away from Agenda 21, people don't get that. A city may enact, or county may enact, state may enact, But until you explain to them what it is, it's not necessarily enacting Agenda 21, it's the principles of Agenda 21. Yes, sir.
You're exactly right about that. But it seems to me like a big part of the problem we got there is people who are on city councils and county commissions who will call themselves conservatives. They'll say they're the biggest conservative that there is. They're voting for these same kind of Agenda 21.
You know how you saw that? You know how you saw that? I saw this happen in a couple of cities. You know how you saw it? Because most of the time, people go tonight, for example, y'all have a great crowd here on a Friday night, by the way. True patriots. You're here on a Friday night giving your time, you're a patriot. I mean, yeah, seriously, give yourself an applause. No, give yourself an applause. Everybody has family or loved ones regardless, or you have a hobby. But that's the problem. I can't tell you the number of people who've told me, they said, when does the city council meet? I said, they meet on Monday nights. And it's not Montgomery, it's not Washington, it's your city. Come on. And they say, I just don't want to go fool with it. I don't want to go fool with it. Tell me what happens at it. And you show up at a city council meeting, and there's 3 people there. Yep. And I'm not blaming everybody. I'm saying at the end of the day, if you want to change, I promise you want to change some planning and zoning. I have seen 100 times. I have seen 100 times. You want to change a policy of government, you get a crowd to show up, and suddenly people start scrambling for the doors. Yep. But that's how you're going to change that. I mean, I'm just saying. I mean, y'all, it is 10 till 8, and I know Al's going to talk about some prepper stuff, and I don't want to get too far into the rest of the program. Also, for selfish reasons, I have a date with my wife and daughter tonight, and I've been promising that all week after being on the road a lot. So, let me say this. Thank you for having me with you. My door's always open. As Al told you earlier, there are things you may agree with me on, there may be things you disagree with me on, but that's okay. I don't mind that. I like the discussion. I enjoy the back and forth. It's educational to me. I learn a lot, and it gives me a chance just to understand and listen to what you think too. So I appreciate you having me tonight. Hope you all have a good weekend. Hope you have a wonderful Merry Christmas too. I know I plan on having one, and hopefully in the new year we'll get fired up and get fighting again. So thank you again for having me, everybody.